What if the Treaty of San Stefano was implemented? In our own timeline, after the Ottoman Empire crushed a Bulgarian uprising in an extremely brutal way, Russia would invade the Ottoman Empire in 1877. Unlike during the Crimean War, no European power would dare to help out the Ottomans because of the aforementioned suppression of Bulgaria. Russia would whip the floor with the Turks, and only as they approached Constantinople did great power intervention stop Russia. Russia would force the Ottoman Empire to sign the Treaty of San Stefano. In it, Russia got southern Bessarabia, Batumi Kars, and Ardahan Romania got its independence, and northern Dobruja Serbia also got its independence, and Niš and Montenegro too got its independence, and Podgorica. But the big elephant in the room was Bulgaria, which would gain its independence as a large Bulgarian state, one that includes most of Macedonia, and has access to the Mediterranean Sea. This was frowned upon by the rest of the continent, as it could allow Russia to use its ports, and so the great powers meet in Berlin to rewrite the Treaty of San Stefano. Russia, Romania, Serbia, and Montenegro wouldn't be forced to hand over their gains, and Austria-Hungary gained influence in Bosnia and Sanjak, but Bulgaria would be mutilated. Romania got parts of Dobruja, Serbia got Vranja, and the Ottomans got all of Macedonia and portions of Thrace. The rest of Thrace became Eastern Rumela, an Ottoman client state, while Bulgaria too became one. Bulgaria would, in the following decades, reunite with Eastern Rumela and gain some of their lost territories, but certainly not all, and trying to regain those only lost more, and bearing briefly during the World Wars, Bulgaria would never regain those territories. But what if that didn't happen? What if the Treaty of San Stefano was implemented? In this timeline, the other great powers accept the new reality in the Balkans with forced stipulations on Bulgaria, forcing it to stay neutral, potentially adding it to its constitution. They also agree that Austria-Hungary gains ownership over Bosnia and Herzegovina, as Russia promised them this area before the war during the Reichstag Agreement. The Ottoman Empire would be in a terrible place. Even if Bulgaria is neutral, its remaining Balkan territories are disjointed and easy to invade, while its capital Constantinople is now exposed. In Bulgaria, Alexander of Battenberg would still be crowned Prince of Bulgaria as Alexander I, but I could see him elevate himself to Tsar of Bulgaria. In this timeline, without Russo-Bulgarian relations having been soured by the unification with Eastern Rumela and Bulgaria being constitutionally neutral, a coup like the one in 1886 would probably not occur, meaning he probably rules until his death in 1893. He had no male heirs, and so the line moves back to his father and from there to his younger brother Prince Henry, who would be crowned as Henry I, only for him to die 3 years later, and his son Alexander to take the throne as Alexander II, although considering that he was 10 at the time, a regency would be initially in charge. Henry and later Alexander II might not be liked by Russia due to Henry's marriage to the daughter of Queen Victoria, but the other powers would approve of it. And for Russia, he would be seen as the lesser of two evils, as his brother Louis was a naval officer in the Royal Navy. For the Ottoman Empire, as I previously said, they are extremely exposed regarding the Balkan, and a much earlier First Balkan War with Greece, Serbia, and Montenegro could break out maybe in 1897 when the Greco-Turkish War of our own timeline broke out. Greece would annex Crete, Epirus, and if they haven't already, Thessaly. All three of them were given extra autonomy in San Stefano, but also portions of Macedonia, including Salonika. Serbia and Montenegro partitioned Sanjak, and Serbia gets Albania, giving them access to the sea. The reason as to why Serbia would achieve this here is because, for one, Serbia is smaller and thus less seen as a threat for Austria-Hungary. Second, the May coup hasn't happened yet, meaning the pro-Habsburg House of Obrenović is still in charge. Lastly, with a big neutral Bulgaria, Russian influence might be more limited, thus not being seen as worryingly. In 1903, the Serbian May coup could still happen, although may be pushed back by a few years, and in 1908 the Ottomans face a coup as well, sparking Austria-Hungary to annex Bosnia, and soon later Italy to invade Tripolitania. But without a Balkan War, the Ottoman coup of 1913 wouldn't happen. The second constitutional era lives on. The pro-German and extremely xenophobic three Pasha don't come to power. Without a radical Berlin Conference and Serbo-Bulgarian War, the League of the Three Emperors could survive longer, but Wilhelm II was never seriously interested in it, and the perceived rise of Russia and racism towards Slavs would push Germany away from Russia and Russia in the hands of France. In 1914, it is possible that Franz Ferdinand still gets assassinated, leading to the First World War with Germany and Austria-Hungary on one side and the United Kingdom, France, Russia, Belgium, Serbia, and Montenegro on the other. Neither Bulgaria nor the Ottoman Empire would join the Central Powers, as Bulgaria already has almost everything they could have asked for is neutral, and if anything, its monarch would favor Great Britain, and to a lesser degree Russia. The Ottomans meanwhile wouldn't be dragged into the war by Enver Pasha. The Balkan campaign wouldn't abruptly end in 1915, and the Ottomans won't tie up British and Russia forces, while also closing the Dardanelles. In 1915 Italy and in 1916 Romania would also join the war, and Austria-Hungary and Germany would be forced to surrender after just 2 years. France, the United Kingdom, Belgium, and Japan would partition German colonies in Africa and Asia. France would take Alsace-Lorraine and Saarland. Russia would get Posen, the Mamiland, Galicia and Lodomeria, and northern Bukovina. Italy gets Trentino, South Tyrol, Istria, Sniznik and portions of Dalmatia. Belgium still gets up in Malmedy. Serbia, which united with Montenegro into Yugoslavia, got Bosnia and Herzegovina, southern Dalmatia and Croatia, Slavonia. Romania would get southern Bukovina and parts of southern Transylvania. The Central Powers would survive and are in a better place than in our own timeline, with both the Austro-Hungarian and Imperial German government surviving. For Austria-Hungary, I could see one of 3 outcomes. The first is a continue of the status quo, although it is possible that a third Czechoslovak crown is added, turning the dual monarchy into the triple monarchy. The second option is an Austro-Hungarian divorce, with Hungary using the weak position of Austria to secede, potentially with a continued Habsburg monarch either under Emperor Charles or Archduke Joseph August. The dual monarchy is over, but at least it ended peacefully. The third and last option is a violent dissolution of the empire, with all of its ethnicities trying to gain independence and potential intervention of nearby states. The United Kingdom, striking to prevent a too strong Germany and a too strong Russia, as it is now in their vision again, calls for a conference to redraw the boundaries of the empire. Romania gets Krajina and partitions Banat with Serbia, which also gets Carniola in exchange for Vlora to Italy. Czechoslovakia would gain independence, but without the Sudetenland, southern Slovakia or Carpathia, with the former going to Austria and the latter to Hungary, ultimately making the state extremely exposed. Lastly, Austria would be allowed to join Germany. Ultimately, Germany lost Austria-Hungary, only keeping Hungary, but at least gaining Italy, with Russia gained Czechoslovakia and a bigger Romania and Yugoslavia. The status quo and trialism scenario, and for the most part, the divorce scenario, wouldn't really be any different, and so I'll make 2 versions, one for the first 3, and one for the collapse of Austria-Hungary. The German Empire would endure but barely, and it is possible that the Social Democrats, Christian Democrats, and liberals could force the Kaiser to make concessions. In the Balkans, instead of just broadly one South Slavic nation in the form of Yugoslavia, there is one for the Eastern South Slavs in the form of Bulgaria and one for the Western South Slavs in the form of Yugoslavia. But Bulgaria could find enemies everywhere, as Yugoslavia, Greece, and Romania might want some of their territories, and considering that Bulgaria would be leaning towards the United Kingdom, this just further erodes the Entente. France and the United Kingdom would remain largely to make sure neither Russia nor Germany is too strong, while Germany and Russia now compete for Eastern Europe. Russia can call Romania Yugoslavia, and potentially Czechoslovakia its allies, and Germany can call Austria-Hungary or Hungary and Italy its allies. The Entente would make sure this war wouldn't break out, or at least end indecisively. Alexander II would have a long, peaceful, and successful reign of 64 years. In those, he turns Bulgaria economically stronger and makes it a true power in the Balkans, one that can stand proud. In 1960, he would pass away, and since he had no son to speak of, the line moved back to his father. But since his brothers are already dead and don't have children either, the line moves back even further to his grandfather, and from there to his uncle Louis Mountbatten. Louis Mountbatten already died, and so the line moves to his cousin George Mountbatten, who is also dead, and so the line moves back once more to his first cousin, once removed, David Mountbatten, who would be crowned as David I. David, however, would die just 10 years later, and so his son George would be crowned as George I, and he would rule to this day. In this timeline, Bulgaria would be a massive player in the Balkans, controlling Macedonia, and the First World War ends quicker with the German and potentially Austrian Empire enduring. Bulgaria would be something greater than the Prussia of the Balkans. It would be the Britain of the Balkans. If you liked the episode, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.